How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh KI6NAZ. What makes an antenna, a dipole for instance, tactical? Well, the definition is of or relating to combat tactics, such as occurring at the battlefield or using or being weapons or forces employed at the battlefront. However, there is a second definition, a little bit different take on it, of or related to tactics, tactical, such as of or relating to small-scale action serving a larger purpose, and this is where ham radio gets into it. Made or carried out with only a limited or immediate end in view. I argue that of that whole thing, that last bit is how an antenna could be tactical. Today we're going to be talking about the Chameleon Tactical Dipole Mark II, or version 2. And there's a lot to say. Alright, so I have to tell a little bit of a story to kick this off. This antenna was sent to me by Chameleon Antennas, and Carl and I have spoken about this antenna for some time. I've actually had it for a little while. I haven't done a review on it because I haven't had the adequate space at my home QTH to put it up in its primary configuration, which is an inverted V. However, I was traveling to Ohio to attend Dave Canterbury's The Gathering and talk about emergency communications, and I thought that would be the perfect venue to set up this antenna. And it was absolutely fantastic. The Vinton County Amateur Radio Club was there with a Marconi military mast with a pulley system. We were able to get it into that inverted V configuration with the terminated resistors, and we used it all weekend, and they had a lot of fun with it. Now, I appreciate this is an anecdotal type accounting. I am one ham with a couple other hams that use the antenna. However, we were able to do single sideband contacts. We hunted some POTA, we ran FT8 and JSA call for demonstrations throughout the weekend. This was primarily done on 20 meters, 40 meters, and 80 meters. Cue the video. You wanna I'll show you what it looks like? I'll come over and look at your setup. You guys over there? Oh. So it's dual-ended, right? So I believe the way this is used is it just it basically just makes it so that you can throw anything you want at it. All right, here we go. We got our feed line. Go for it. Yep. It's perfect. There you go. Also tape out your wires here. We're going to tape it up so nobody gets stuck. Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu.
Heard somebody really weak give a call real quick there. What was your call again?
Yeah, call here is Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu. Oh, you're good. I want to test this antenna. I got to test it.
Okay, the station calling. What was your call again? I've got the beam toward Ohio.
QSL. Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu. How's copy?
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, very good. Are you mobile?
Kind of, sorta. We're doing a vent out here. Where's the county again? Vinton County, Ohio, at the fairgrounds. I'm doing a bit of a talk here today on amateur radio.
Oh, very good on that. Okay, you're about a 5 and 5 here, about a 5 and 5. The call here is Whiskey 5 Uniform Radio X-Ray. Go ahead. Name is Scott.
Hey Scott, thanks for the contact. I appreciate it. We're literally just testing out an antenna we set up. It's a terminated dipole antenna.
The rig is an FTDX 5000, and we're running that into a 3-element monoband beam up about 40 feet. Go ahead.
Very nice. Yeah. Like I said, we're just kind of getting set up here, and we wanted to test out this antenna. The idea of this thing is that it's pretty semi-flat against most bands, and we're just trying different configurations to see if we can we can see what we can do with it. But yeah, got you in the log now. Got you a little log I set up here for portable. Anyway, thank you for the contact, Scott. Appreciate it again, and I'll give you a 7.3 so you can go chase some other contacts. Shout out to the Vinton County Amateur Radio Club. Thank you for your hospitality. Now I'm going to have to group this review into two parts. First, I'm going to talk about my experience, what the antenna does, its capabilities, what I feel, and then I'm going to talk about some of the conversations that have been happening online and try and put my take on it. If you want to watch one of the other things and not the other thing, there is timestamps at the bottom throughout the play bar of this YouTube video. You can feel free to jump along to whatever you're interested in. It's called chapters. So the tactical dipole has three primary configurations. The main configuration is the inverted V I talked about, with the 5-to-1 matching unit box at the top, the pinnacle spot, 25 to 30-ish feet. The manual gives explicit directions on the recommendation. At the end of the day, I feel like we had it at about 30 feet. There is 62 feet of wire, give or take, to two resistors, a resistor on each side, and I believe it is a 300 ohm resistor on each end. Connected to those resistors are counterpoise wires to the tune of about 25 feet. So all said and done, you've got a pretty long antenna to get up in the air. It's easy to consider the total length of this antenna more than that of a 40-meter dipole. 40-meter dipoles are about 120 to 130 feet, depending on the frequency you want. However, in this case, by adding the 25-foot counterpoises on the end connected to the resistor, you're adding 50 feet, call it, on top of the whole thing. This gets you down to 160 meters, and it is supposed to be capable across all those bands with no tuner. This is called a wide-banded antenna, and so for those of you watching who, when you hear the term wideband antenna, particularly on transmit, you start running for the hills or start feverishly typing. Because, and there is a lot of this that we're going to talk about at the end of this video, but there's the general conception that if you're a wideband antenna, you're not a very good transmitter. You are giving up transmit efficiency to gain all band capability. This also can show itself on the receiving side, in which you can't hear some of those faint signals. As always, I will say this caveat right up front: if you want maximum performance on any band of operation, build a resonant antenna for that band, assemble it, and put it at the adequate height that it is supposed to be at. If it's a dipole, get it at least 1/4 wavelength off of the ground or higher. Verticals, you get the idea, make them resonant. Don't use coils, don't do any of that stuff. But this antenna, because it's tactical, we're trying to do something in an efficient way to serve a intended goal, which in our case is to make a contact or be field expedient or be multi-banded, which is what a military application for an antenna like this would be. The antenna is very easy to set up using that pulley system or throwing a line over the tree limb. We could just hoist the center connector up with the wires, the 60-foot wires hanging off the side, and then using the resistors and the counterpoises to pull it taut once we got it all in place. The kit comes with a bag, a couple of stakes, 2 sets of radiating wires, the center connector, the 2 resistors, 2 counterpoises, a throwing weight bag, and a couple of bundles of cordage for hoisting the antenna in the air and for staking it out in the ends. So the primary configuration, as I mentioned, is this inverted V that I used at the gathering. However, there are 2 more types as well. There is a non-terminated inverted V, which is just take the resistors off at the end. That will function as a more traditional dipole, except it would be multi-banded. So you'd still have that 5-to-1 transformer on that center connector where the wires connect in, right? That's at the top of that inverted V. I'm told by Carl that if you're going to deploy it in that configuration, that you will need a tuner. So keep that in mind. And then the last version, which is called the hasty setup, is just one side of the dipole where the resistor and counterpoise end gets hoisted into the tree with the counterpoise hanging loosely, and the 5-to-1 transformer is towards the ground, staked or pulled in such a way that you get a relatively taut line. That's your hasty setup. It's going to get a little bit less performance, and it's going to have a much different propagation capability. The RF energy that it puts out, and this is coming from the Chameleon manual, is as diagrammed right now, which you can see is going in a certain direction. It's going to be functioning in a certain way. You're looking at both a horizontal view and an overhead view, so that you can tell the difference in how one performs over the other. Now, there's one aspect of this antenna that I think deserves a mention. Carl has talked about it, and it's also in the manual. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to test it, but as an inverted V dipole, right? Normally you think of this, and if you looked at it from the top down, it would just be two lines that go straight across from each other, and it is 180 degrees. If you were looking at a circle, it's bisected, it's 180 degrees, right? Carl is claiming and advocating the use of this antenna is actually pie slicing it out, bringing that to, say, a 110 degree dipole. So if looking at the top, kind of like a pie slice. Again, I'm overlaying the image, so I hope you get the idea of what we're looking at. And that will actually provide gain. Again, there is an antenna field plot that I'll be showing here. Now, I can't comment on how much gain you get from doing this, but sure, something would happen to the plot, the propagation of the antenna. I found that an interesting bit. You can do this with other antennas. I'm not saying you can't. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting little factoid that this antenna can also do. So getting back to our configuration, in the inverted V, we found as advertised SWR measurements. In fact, we saw better than 2-to-1 SWR on all bands except for 80, in which the number did go up. I am overlaying those on the screen as I am talking about them. So generally it was matched for your transceiver. Here's a bit more of this multi-banded talk that people have been mentioning in other videos and online, that the transformer is the matching box right at the center. You are going to lose some efficiency on that in the form of heat, but it's those terminated resistors that is going to get you that kind of wide-banded capability across the board. That's why you can simply just change bands without having to do anything on the antenna and have it work multi-banded. I'm explaining all this for people that are new to ham radio and might not know this and just think because they put up two wires that they get spectacular performance multi-band capability. There are no free lunches in ham radio. You must give up something to gain something. Generally, a resonant antenna is going to be on one band. You can put up lots of wires for different bands, but that means you're putting up lots of wires. Generally, making a dipole with two wires, multi-bandedness kind of goes out the window unless you make it work that way. Adding resistors, adding a transformer to bring the match down. If it's cut differently, you get the idea. All of those things you add is incurring loss in some way in the form of heat, or the loss of efficiency, or the loss of capability on transmit. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to be as open and objective in this as possible. Now, at some point in my story, I have to cover the fact that I picked up COVID during the weekend that I was at the gathering. So on the last day when I would have been collecting B-roll and propagation numbers for how they had done over the weekend using PSK Reporter, all that stuff, I was isolating myself in my hotel room, trying to avoid everybody, and frankly, just over the fact that I didn't feel good and really didn't want to be making video stuff. I apologize for what I'm going to talk about right now. Further, I wasn't going to go back to the gathering, tear the antenna apart with all these people around me, put it in a bag, and then say, okay, bye, guys, hey, thanks so much. So even though this antenna was given to me by Chameleon to review, I gave it to the Vinton Amateur Radio Club. And frankly, they are much more MCOM focused in what they do as a club, and I feel that what this antenna is good for is right up their alley. I told them what it does, and they love it. They're very excited. So just want to be as open about that as possible. They have the antenna. I did keep one thing though, and it's one of my favorite things in the entire kit. Let me get it for you. The bag this comes in, you can quote me saying this is the best Chameleon bag that they've shipped their antennas with. The M-Pass antenna comes with a bag. Most of their antennas come with a bag, right? They provide some kind of bag. This one is really nice. It's a really good size. It is a kind of a side zip duffel that also has backpack straps that go on the inside of the bag with a little side pouch as well. Really convenient bag. This actually helped me a ton when I went from Ohio back to California driving. A bunch of my medical supplies, my food stuffs for the road, and some drinks went in here. Wonderful. Good job on that one. I don't know where they get them from. They're bought from somewhere. If I find out, I'll post a link in the description. It's a great bag. All right, so I'm going into the used case of this antenna, and hopefully I painted a bit of a picture with the setup of the antenna and how we used it and what we were able to communicate with. Relatively close-in single sideband comms. Of course, it did digital radio fine. Most antennas do, even compromised antennas. Now, this is where the two lanes of communication people start to separate. Military comms and ham radio comms, even emergency comms, they start to pass each other's, separate, take different off-ramps into the night. The thing that military comms, particularly HF communication, does, I've talked about this on my channel multiple times doing demonstrations of this, is ALE, Automatic Link Establishment. It comes in the form of software in their military radios, as well as software that goes on the computers that they run. The military has a very brute force way of communicating on HF. Generally, if they're trying to do communication in a radius of 300, 400, 500 something miles, call it close-in communication, they're going to use NVIS, Near Vertical Incidence Skywave Antennas, meaning that more of the RF is going up vertically and coming back down, shooting up and then coming down wider on their footprint than it is shooting away. Ham radio operators, we traditionally want our RF to go as far as possible, and we want to hear those far away signals and pull them into our radio so that we can get that great DX. That's most hams, or the most hams that are on HF. Some hams want that close-in capability. In fact, a ton of people are always asking me, what antenna do I put up? What radio do I buy if I want to communicate to my family? They are 300 miles away. Pretty much you need to have an NVIS antenna to do that. So you could set up something like the tactical dipole from Chameleon, and that would give you multi-band capability, or you could use something else like a folded dipole. There are multiple antennas that will do things closer to the Chameleon, but the Chameleon is actually very easy to set up. It is efficient in its use and capability. Let me go back to the military comment. Automatic link establishment is a system where the radio connected to an antenna quickly changes bands and squawks. And any radio that is also changing band and listening and squawking itself can hear that squawk and reply and say, I got you, man. We're on whatever frequency. We heard each other. They squawk to each other. They both stop and go, oh, wait a second. There might be a station there. And then they'll broker communication. This all happens before a human really gets into the loop. It's automatic. Once the radio or software has determined that a reliable path of communication exists, they stop on that frequency, stop on that band, and either start transmitting data or voice. This is what the military does. So they want an antenna that they can put up one or multiples connected to the same radio and get very fast, very low SWR, or low enough for the radio they're using, but multi-banded. They want to be able to quickly change bands without having to retune, physically modify an antenna, do anything, and have it transmit. They don't care that it is less efficient, they just want multi-banded because they're doing automatic link establishment. So a somewhat lossier antenna, but the capability to jump through all of their HF bands of operation and have the other side be able to do so too. And just figure it out, ALE. Tell me which bands of communication I should be using. That is how they do it. Hams are different animals. We want the sports car, the top fuel drag racer of antennas. We want all of that energy to go into that wire and shoot out. At least for doing DX, at least for doing contesting. There are other folks, though, that just want that close-in comms, and that's kind of what this antenna's for. So the point of this, and it feels like I'm talking a lot about what this antenna is and what it's supposed to be and what it can do, to simply say, it's probably not for most hams. It's for hams that want the capability of field expediency with multi-banded capability. They want the ability to hear in close multi-banded, to be able to switch bands quickly and easily to talk to whomever it is they're trying to reach. Could be an emergency situation. In fact, it's probably pretty good for emergency situations because you'd be able to communicate in and out of the emergency area and be able to change bands without having to do anything. Just change your radio over and you're done. So that's the capability. That's what it does. Now, to get some of the other details out of the way, the antenna is $450. I don't think I'm surprising anybody when I say Chameleon's antennas are generally on the more expensive side when you compare them to others or homebrew, but most homebrew is much less expensive than the price you pay for off-the-shelf manufactured antennas. All right, so Michael KB9VBR made a video on this antenna. Did a great job. Michael, I've always liked your stuff. By the way, the link is in the description. Go sub to Michael. Good guy, really good information. Takes the time to answer people's questions and explain how and why we do things in the hobby. So good job. Anyway, I'm not going to comment on his video. I think you should just go watch it. But the comments in the video, like that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And hopefully I set a stage as we got up to this point where I can respond to some of the people in those comments. I'm not going to pull comments. I'm not going to mention names. I will not do anything like that. You can go read these on your own. But I think I need to clear the air a little bit and say, for everybody that's upset, this antenna isn't for you. If you want the most perfect, efficient antenna, go buy one, go build one, go enjoy one. It feels to me that the reason a lot of these, and by the way, those people know that. I'm not telling them anything they don't know. The reason why they are so upset though is that they're concerned for the sanctity of radio, which is a term I've brought up before, that they are arguing on behalf of a new ham that doesn't know better, or someone who is easily duped by snake oil or some kind of magic, or the perception of magic, the do-it-all antenna, the antenna that doesn't exist. I've tried hard in my videos, and I've been called out before and keep calling me out, in not being clear in what some of the capabilities are of antennas, like this one, the tactical dipole. So I hope I was clear in that, but for everybody that's defending the sanctity of ham radio, I feel like we can be more nuanced than that. We can strike a more nuanced point and be clear with what an antenna is for and how it is supposed to work or what it was designed to do. I don't think Carl is telling anyone or selling this as a DX antenna. He's not selling it as a contester's rig. Nothing like that. He's selling it and providing information on it as a tactical dipole that you could use in emergency communications, that the military can use as a replacement to competitor antennas that cost hundreds, if not thousands more. This antenna is designed to fill a niche for the military and potentially a niche for the ham radio community that the hams that are commenting on Michael's video probably are not a part of. So I appreciate you are being defensive of our hobby and protecting those from potentially being robbed or taken for a ride, if you will. But do try to consider that I don't think we have any reason to believe that Carl is doing anything nefarious. I've always felt that Chameleon uses high-quality products and novel designs, and the price is commensurate to that. Sure, they're expensive. Yeah, I don't think anyone would doubt that, but it's also probably not for everybody, right? I think we are in a world in our ham community where there are lots of good options, and maybe the Chameleon option is the one you want to go with. And I generally like their stuff because it's field expedient. So, hey, those are my thoughts on that. And nobody take me the wrong way. I'm not actually throwing shade at any of the people that are fighting with Carl. Fighting's the wrong word. Arguing passionately with Carl in Michael's video. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying that they're even intentionally trolling or being mean or are inaccurate in their statements. I just think that there's a conversation going on where the two are kind of going right past each other. Carl's explaining this isn't a DX antenna, I'm not selling it that way, and the other folks are saying, yeah, but it's not as efficient as the bestest antenna that you could possibly make. Yeah, that's not the point. So, hey, consider that. Maybe? I don't know. I would love to hear your comments on this antenna. And do you appreciate the difference in the best performing, most efficient antenna versus the field expedient, multi-banded NVIS antenna and all that stuff? It's just like it's like using a tack driving hammer versus a ball peen hammer or a framing hammer. They're different tools that serve different functions, but they're all hammers, right? I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. If you enjoyed this video, your feedback drives this whole thing. So post your comments below. I have a feeling that we're going to get comments on this one no matter what I say here. But if you enjoyed this, even if you disagree with my point, hey, if you can still enjoy a video and not agree with the point, give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing because I will probably have more hot takes in the future just like this. Actually, I know I will because I have some products that may be sitting behind me here that I am sure some of you are not going to maybe take issue with. Anyway, I live stream every Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'm hosting Ham Nation now every other Wednesday. So I hope you check that out. I will talk to you soon, okay? 73.